Hey everybody, Brian Von VA. What are some common rule interpretations that you've heard, but are not actually rules as written, or raw? Leave them down in the comments below. The massive one is crit fails and crit successes on ability checks. Had a conversation with someone who says that a crit success ability check always succeeds no matter how absurd it is. Seduce the dragon, convince the king to hand over his kingdom, you know. All I could think was, that seems exhausting. It also makes plot and world building pretty much meaningless if any given roll has a 5% chance of completely neutering any obstacle. If multiple players get to roll, the odds just keep on climbing. That the Adventuring Day balance in the DMG, or Dungeon Master Guide, means that you have 6 to 8 combat encounters per day. The real text reads that 6 to 8 medium to hard encounters will deplete your party. The next line in the DMG says that this can also be achieved by fewer, more difficult encounters. The big one for me is the surprise round. Not universally accepted, but certainly pretty common. 5th edition has no such mechanic. Initiative is rolled, the DM determines which creatures are surprised. Those creatures are surprised and unable to take actions or reactions until the end of their turn. Simple, right? A surprised creature who rolls high initiative could very reasonably have their turn before the creatures who surprised them, and thus have their reaction restored by the time anything actually happens to them. Opportunity attacks, shield, counterspell, they're all back in play for them during that first round of combat once their turn has passed. There is a tendency to skip that creature's turn, despite the fact meaningful effects could take place during it, including the restoration of their reaction, or to say they're surprised for the entire first round of combat, which is only actually true if they're the bottom of the initiative order. Here's an obligatory one. You can't cast more than one leveled spell per turn. Or the flip side of straight up just ignoring the bonus action spellcasting rule and allowing stuff like Healing Word and Shatter. There are a few big ones where they're based on Crawford rulings, but the funny one to me will always be Magic Missile as roll 1d4 plus 1 once. All missiles will do that much damage. To get there, he refers to the damage rolls section, which says the following. If a spell or other effect deals damage to more than one target at the same time, roll the damage once for all of them. For example, when a wizard casts Fireball or a cleric casts Flame Strike, that spell's damage is rolled once for all the creatures caught in the blast. Now, Magic Missile says, you create 3 glowing darts of magical force. Each dart hits a creature of your choice that you can see within range. A dart deals 1d4 plus 1 force damage to its target. The darts all strike simultaneously, and you can direct them to hit one creature or several. Now, to apply the damage rules rule above as written, you then have to either apply it or not apply it depending on how Magic Missile is actually cast, or you have to argue that one target being hit by multiple missiles is multiple targets, not creature A, but target of missile A, B, and C. Either way, Magic Missile now works in a manner completely different to everything else in the game, and because of that, other features now work uniquely with it. Evoker, Star Druid, etc. Crawford also had some other big weird ones, and some are still used despite coming after the official Crawford rulings are not Word of God, WOG, statement, but this one stands out as being very difficult to support. Don't forget his ruling of each missile would call for a concentration check, so a first level spell would need someone to succeed on 3 concentration checks just to maintain their own spell. Now, I kind of am actually all for that. It really gives identity to the spell as the concentration killer, and the reason Shield was designed to be the anti-concentration spell. However, he is amusingly silent when asked the follow-up question, if each missile is a damage source and requires a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration, does it also cause someone at 0 hit points to suffer a death saving throw failure? Which would mean as soon as someone hits 0 hit points, Magic Missile is the coup de grace move, as it cannot miss and causes 3 failures, all for a first level spell. That would be devastating. Oh, you can't target through glass or through a wall of force. Why not? This interpretation is predicated on the clear path to target section from the spellcasting rules. Now, to target something, you must have a clear path to it, so it can't be behind total cover. Now, the issue here is the word clear, which is quite ambiguous. It could mean visibly clear, which means you could do stuff like target through the glass or a wall of force, or it could mean unobstructed, which means you couldn't target through glass but could target through a fog cloud, or even still, it could mean both visibly clear and unobstructed. Now, to make things more confusing, they use the word concealed when describing full cover, which implies only visual obscurity is needed. But for half and 3/4 cover, they explicitly use obstacle and block. But if you can target through a wall of force, doesn't that make the spell useless? No. Wall of force specifically states nothing can physically pass through the wall. This means that even if you target someone on the other side with a musket, the shot would just clank off the wall. But if you were to target someone with a musket through the glass, the shot could very well go through the glass and hit the target, and this makes a lot more sense than the common ruling in my opinion. It also sidesteps the awkwardness of technically not being able to target a wall of force with disintegrate. Just target something on the opposite side of the wall. What the roll of the dice even is. Now, people are often described as failing or succeeding because of their skill determined by the die roll. You rolled an 18, you nailed it. You rolled a 2, you fumble badly because you fucked up, kid. This is how I most commonly see the dice interpreted. But the dice are meant to represent circumstance, not skill. Your skill is already reflected by your proficiency and skill points and your stats, of course. If you roll a 4 on picking a lock, you shouldn't fail because you suck at this or you broke your tool or whatever. You should fail because the lock itself is damaged or is at a very difficult angle. Perhaps it's somehow a rare or unusual lock and it requires a different kind of tool that you do not have. It could be any number of things. If you fail an athletics check, you shouldn't just suddenly become weaker. The ground gave in under you, something got stuck, or the current suddenly shifted in a way that you couldn't have anticipated. Rolling a natural 20 means whatever happens happened under the absolute best, most favorable conditions possible, and a natural 1 is the absolute worst, most unfortunate, or even cursed thing that's ever happened. So, for example, if you roll a 1 on stealth, it shouldn't necessarily indicate that you've stepped on a twig that you've overlooked. An animal stepped on that twig despite you deftly avoiding it. The tile in the mosaic you were crossing was damaged and came loose. The guards you're sneaking past just so happens to sneeze at that point in time, and in grabbing his hanky, he happens to spot you as he turns to fetch it. This is so much better for everyone when you don't treat the characters as being bumbling, fumbling dumbasses or fools for no reason. Doing this is not only poor play in my opinion, but actively antagonistic, even if it's not trying to be. Forcing your character to perform that action will strip them, and thus you as a player, of agency, which is antithetical to the entire purpose of RPGs, which is not good. I've been in games where I'm almost wanting to fudge my dice rolls, not because I want to hit or succeed a check, but because if I fail, the DM will just describe my character as being an idiot. As an example, one time my bard was trying to crack open a door to get a view of a room of people, but apparently a nat 1 stealth roll meant she decided to burst through the door and burst into song, da-da-da, instead of, some bad luck, someone opened the door on the other side at the exact wrong moment. Whether a GM wants to actively differentiate in the flavor between a fail by 1 and a fail because it's a 1 is entirely subjective, and I could go either way. If the GM said the door creaked when I cracked it open regardless of a nat 1 or a 7 total, that would be fine too. But it absolutely should not have involved the character performing another action entirely. That's ridiculous and frustrating, and this narrator is totally on board with changing this forever and ever. Holding an action really isn't a thing when not currently in combat. Reacting to something hostile is already represented through initiative outside of combat. I personally ruled that I hold an attack until someone comes and attack us as something that PCs can do on their first turn. Ooh, I've got some more specifically from Wild Magic Sorcerer that I have run into several times. Tides of Chaos says to roll for a Wild Magic Surge when you refresh it. Therefore, you need to roll a d20 and get a 1 to surge. Nope, it says roll on the Wild Magic Surge table, which means make a Wild Magic Surge happen right now. And also, if Tides of Chaos causes a Wild Magic Surge, it replaces the normal d20 roll to trigger a Wild Magic Surge, therefore you can't surge twice on the same spell. There is nothing that says this. People screaming, "Guidance!" all the time as if it's a reaction. It's not a reaction. It's a spell. It's also a VS spell, which means it's loud. You cannot guidance a frickin' stealth check. That is the one that annoys me the most. I blame a certain live play show for popularizing this. Let's talk about the deck of many things. Oh, I'm already wetting my pants a little bit. How I see it's used. Painfully. I draw one. Oh, good. It was great. It's a good card, yeah. Later, I'll try again and see what I get that time. Smart move. No, don't do that. Before you draw a card, you must declare how many cards you intend to draw and then draw them randomly. You can use an altered deck of playing cards to simulate the deck. Any cards drawn in excess of this number will have no effect. Now, my interpretation is based on that last sentence. You declare, you draw, that's it. Any more cards you draw have no effect. Simple. This is more in line with the theme of the deck. If you want multiple draws, you better be prepared to ask for multiple draws and deal with the consequences, sunshine. That means to get more uses, the deck needs to be passed to other people. Old editions had it teleport to a random location in the planes after use. The multiple declaration interpretation means one person can hold it and use it one card at a time. It actually becomes foolish to declare more than one at a time if you can keep coming back for more. The single declaration means if you want to be greedy, you have to drink from the fire hose all at once, baby. The wording is just vague enough to support both interpretations, but I am convinced one of these is correct rules as written, and the other rules as interpreted. RAW, RAI. And the other is arguably consistent with raw, but only if you make some assumptions. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, and let us know what are some common rule interpretations that you've heard that aren't actually rules as written. Leave them down in the comments below. We love you all. See you next time. Bye for now.